Awesome. Welcome everyone to another episode of Transforming Trauma to Triumph. I'm your host, Diana Min, and today we have a very special guest, Tanya Penny, who will be joining us. And I'm so excited to have her on here and to have her share who she is and her work with all of us. So Tanya, thank you so much for joining us. Excited to have you here.
Hi, thank you so much for doing this. This is a really important topic.
Yeah.
So, especially now on the planet, I think a lot of people are experiencing trauma with this pandemic. So,
Absolutely. I'm really trying to give people a light in the darkness right now, and it's to help empower people to use this as a tool to somehow find some solace in what's going on. Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for our audience that doesn't know who you are or aren't familiar with your work, please let us know what it is you do and who it is you help.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm an occupational therapist by degree, but I've kind of taken a more alternative path because of my own journey.
Mhm.
And so I really focus a lot on helping people actually heal chronic illness and trauma.
Mhm.
And I do that mostly virtually. I was doing retreats a couple times a year, but those are a little bit on hold right now because of what's happening. And yeah, so in a nutshell, that's what I do. And I teach people usually the methodology that I used in healing my own trauma and my own chronic illness. I struggled with anxiety, depression for a very long time, and then was diagnosed with MS in 2004.
Wow.
Which really put me on that journey of looking at what is at the root, right? And really wanting to heal that. And I saw what a big connection my past trauma, my unresolved past trauma was, and how important it was to heal that. And so I teach what I've used myself. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm here today. And I just am excited to be here. So thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, a lot of people that are in like this kind of work, like we have used our wounds as a way to find healing for ourselves and then also to pass that healing forward because I'm very much, in that same realm where I had borderline personality disorder, PTSD, anxiety, depression, and, it just being passed on, I think, genetically as well, and then also through the trauma from my childhood. And then as I haven't, and you said it's a non-traditional path, saying like, I don't think I intended to be who I am. I just wanted to heal myself and then subsequently found that I am able to help others do the same. And it's been super rewarding, as I'm sure your work is as well.
Yeah, and I don't think we consciously are aware of it, obviously, when we're in it,
Mm-hmm.
as we're going through it. But, one of the pieces that I think is really important and that what I teach is that, it was whatever your trauma was. And of course, there's all sorts of trauma, right? There's verbal abuse, sexual abuse, there's being teased at school, there's death of a loved one. I mean, the list goes on and on. Regardless of the trauma that you've experienced, one of the pieces that I find to be very helpful is that spiritual understanding that it was part of your soul's journey
Yeah.
to actually experience that trauma, oftentimes to overcome it, maybe related to past life stuff, like so for us to finally grow and overcome it, and be done with it in this lifetime, I feel is a big piece that, and a piece that helps me and helps a lot of my clients pull through.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, not that it takes away the pain, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but I think that's an important piece
Yeah.
to accept.
Yeah, I think I had one, I've worked with so many different healers in my life, and I've had one person tell me, "Oh, when you were going through your training," like, and we always, that's what she likes to call my trauma, your training. And
Yep.
so I love that perspective that, like, once I really shifted, I was like, it was my training. I was going through, Ninja Warrior training so that I can be who I am now. And from that perspective, I have a lot of gratitude for the journey, although hard and challenging and painful it was to really understand that without it, I wouldn't be who I am today, helping the people that I am today. And as I'm sure it's the same for you.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us, a lot of people listening, I mean, us, of course, because we're here speaking, but even a lot of you listening, whether you're doing it now or not, maybe you're meant to do it in the future, is yeah, once you once you get to a certain point, and I'm not saying you have to have healed it 100%, because I'm still working through deeper layers,
Oh yeah.
but to remember, you only need to be a few steps ahead to help other people.
Absolutely.
So I do feel like whether you get paid for it or whether you're just to, maybe share it with friends or whatever, that we're all here to share what has helped us on our journey.
Mm.
And in this case, we're talking about trauma. So
Yeah, yeah. And I it's funny that you said that. Like, I don't feel it ever ends. Like, I just feel like life is just like a never-ending journey of facing your own shit constantly. You know what I mean? It's like there's been times where I'm like, is there still more? And then there is still more. It's like, look at that, let's peel this layer back. And whoa, there's this whole other stuff that I haven't seen or like recognized before, And so I don't think, it's ever done. I think the journey of life is a continuous healing, right? It is a continuous, just ever unfolding of this onion that we are as human beings.
I would agree. And I think that's an important part to also bring up, is that a lot of us, I mean, I hear it all the time from my clients. I thought I was done with this. And even yesterday, I woke up in depression and I was like, where did this come from? Like, what is this? And it was like another part of me calling for deeper healing, right? Of, again, a past trauma. And so not beating yourself up when you find yourself triggered or, in whatever your symptom is, again, that's letting you know that there's more healing being called for. It's like saying, okay, here's another layer, right? Here's another layer. And is it ever going to be done? I have no idea. I'm not there yet. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that if it's done, then I'm probably not going to be on the planet anymore. I don't know.
It's probably done when we're dead. That's what I thought too. I was like,
done when you're dead. There you go.
Yeah. And even then, it'll probably get passed on to the next life. We'll just continue it on. Why not?
Well, I'm hoping, I really do believe that one of the reasons, and for the pandemic coming up too, like it's really, I've seen it for myself and a lot of my clients, it's stirring up these deeper layers of trauma, not feeling safe in the world, right? Is really big right now. And I do feel, though, that we're given the opportunity to fully clear all of the past stuff, past lives, this life, in this lifetime. We are actually being given the opportunity to do that, which for me is exciting. Yeah. But I don't, who knows? I'm not on the other side yet. But but yeah, I think it would be helpful for me maybe to also share a little bit. A lot of people want to know, what was my trauma experience?
Yes.
Why am I a quote unquote expert on healing this? And I grew up in a household. First of all, I wasn't wanted. I mean, I was an oops. Both the first time my parents both had sex, I was born. So, and they were really young. I think they were 17 and 18.
Wow.
So even trauma occurs in the womb, right? Like my mom was not happy to be pregnant, and she was Catholic. And so there was like, okay, guess you're having the baby and getting married.
Yeah. And
my parents were not a good match. I guess they were obviously to come together, but it was a very chaotic. I grew up in a lot of chaos. My dad was an alcoholic. My mother was undiagnosed bipolar. And it was just very chaotic, a lot of violence, a lot of verbal abuse. And then I was also sexually abused by my father, as well as some other males in the family. So teased at school. I mean, you name it, I've probably experienced it. So that was kind of my growing up, what my life was like. And, I was very resilient. I got through it by overachieving, whether it was in school, in sports, all of it. But I had these really, I got to see when I was diagnosed with the MS, I had these really unhealthy patterns that stemmed from this trauma, right? I had this unhealthy pattern and belief system that I wasn't good enough, that there's something wrong with me, that I wasn't lovable. And so I would just keep trying to either push myself, right, to achieve, to prove myself. I would be a big people pleaser in order to get that love and approval from other people, and usually attracted people that were not healthy, right? People that actually treated me the way I was treated by my father and those other males. So the MS was actually, I'm grateful for it. It was a big wake up call, my body letting me know that you've got this, all these past traumas and the belief systems and the patterns that were created because of them. And that's what really needs to be healed, right? In order for the MS and the anxiety and the depression to be healed. Eating disorders, I had a bunch of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of my background, and why I'm so passionate about being here today and helping all of you, because I know how bad it can feel and how much it can impact every single area of your life when it's not resolved.
Yeah, wow. I can relate to so much of what you just shared, and I just feel like that connection between people that have gone through similar things, and just also understanding how all of the emotional trauma, mental trauma manifested physically in your body as these diseases, as all of these things, and having to understand, like, okay, we have to go within to heal things in the external world. And how did you start your healing journey? Like, once you really understood, okay, like my MS and all these things are manifestations of the trauma that I experienced as a child, like what was your first step into your healing journey?
Yeah, so one of the first things that when I was seeing what was at the root of it, was really reprogramming. I would say the biggest belief, the one I mentioned before, is that I'm not lovable, worthy, or good enough. Mm-hmm. So it was actually beginning to reprogram that belief. And one of the ways that, I did it and I have my clients do it is I record what I call guided therapeutic meditation practices. And they do a lot of different things, soothe the nervous system, release old emotional patterns, but they shift those limiting beliefs. Mm. So, and when I talk about my free gift, you guys are going to get a sample practice. So yeah, as much as I could with the guided meditation practices, but also on a daily basis, looking in the mirror and actually saying, I love you. You're good enough. You're worthy. Mm-hmm. As hard as that was, I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, my self-acceptance and love when I started this process was about a 1, right? 10 being high. Like, I had extreme self-hatred. Towards my body, towards, everything, right? Anything related to me, I would beat myself up like crazy. So it was planting the seeds for that new belief system, and then also catching myself, when I was beating up on myself or when I was putting myself down. It was actually catching myself and saying, nope, we're not going to go there, right? Yeah. That's old. It's not true. Mm-hmm. And just because you were treated, right? Because that's the other thing. When you were treated a certain way, whatever it was, the verbal, physical, sexual abuse, even if a parent dies, a kid will take on this belief, I must have did something wrong, or it's because of me. Mm-hmm. Right? So I'm trying to touch on all the traumas here. But it's really saying, however you were treated, or if that person left, it wasn't about me. It wasn't because I wasn't lovable. It wasn't because I'm broken. It wasn't because I'm not good enough. It was because they were dealing with their own stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So it's actually talking to that wounded part of you. And I'll often ask my clients when I'm working with them, how old is this part of you that we're working with that believes this, that, which trauma, how old is that part of you that we're working with? So you can really get in touch with that part of you, because that's the part you're talking to. Right? That's the part that you're soothing. And so it's both acknowledging what the quote unquote negative stuff is and why it's there, but then also planting the seeds for what is actually true now and what has probably always been true.
Yeah.
It's like, it's almost like you're talking to a child, right? You're talking to that child part of you. And yeah. I know there's traumas in adulthood too, but they typically start in childhood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I Completely. I'm like feeling so much of your heart. It's so beautiful. But yeah, like the inner child work, I don't think, for me is like like a constant thing too, and really understanding like when we are children, we are so susceptible to um understanding that we're not worthy and we think it's our fault, and then we blame ourselves, and how that continues the pattern into adulthood. And so a lot of times I think our inner child is the one that's operating in our adult body, you know
Bingo.
and
That
once
is 100%.
and I think we, like you said, talking in the mirror and saying I love you, you're good enough, right? Like I remember like how hard that was, how hard that is for so many people.
And if you can't start by looking in the mirror, I just tell my clients, just grab your notebook, your journal, and just start by writing it. Because I think writing is also powerful. Writing it and actually then saying it, even if you can't look in the mirror, right? I know I had a really hard time looking in the mirror when I started.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was one of those things where I was like, I couldn't look in the mirror without criticizing myself,
uh,
right? So yeah, I think, writing it, affirming it, hearing it, like with the guided meditations, and then of course catching your actions, right? Like I really had to look at the time I was diagnosed with the MS, and then I realized, what was at the root of it. One of the things I had to do was take that really hard action of leaving a marriage that was, it was a bit abusive, bit controlling, and some verbal abuse, and realizing like, oh my God, I am re-traumatizing this part of me by being in this relationship,
yeah.
right? Was he exactly like my father? No, but it was still not honoring, and it was still re-traumatizing my little girl.
Yeah.
And so, I worked to see if the marriage could shift, and it didn't. So eventually I had to leave. So sometimes to heal our trauma, we might be called to actually look at the relationships in our life and how are they mirroring,
Mm.
right? How are they either mirroring the person, you're with the person, whether it's a friend maybe, or it's a partner, how are they being in that relationship is mirroring the person that actually was part of the initial trauma.
Yes.
So, and that's not easy. It's not easy to do that. It's not easy to address it, to ask for it to change, and maybe even having to leave. But that is ultimately one of the things that's usually required to
Mhm.
heal that part of you,
Yeah.
right? And it doesn't happen overnight. Like I wasn't like, oh my God, I need to leave my marriage, and I left. It was
Yeah.
like it took me 2 years,
Wow.
right? It took me 3 years to heal the MS. It took me 2 years to leave my marriage.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's another piece that, it's a tough piece, but to really look at, because that's really self-love, right? Being in relationships that are fully honoring you
Yeah.
and fully supporting you and are fulfilling. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, again, right, with that inner child, we're constantly seeking the love that we didn't receive as a child in our like partnerships, in our relationships. And I can relate to that when I had a lot of violence in my childhood, and my mother was bipolar, and so all of my relationships before I started being conscious and aware of healing them were all violent, like so much violence in my life, like everywhere. And it was just like, and it took some healing, some work to really understand like, hey, like I'm repeating the same pattern here, and it's just because it's what I'm used to. This is
Right.
where
It was your normal. It was your normal. So we will attract to us what we believe was normal and the way that we think we deserve to be treated. So again, it goes back to that I'm lovable, I'm worthy, I deserve this, not that,
mm-hmm.
right? So it's really, it's kind of twofold. It's shifting that belief system, and then it's also taking the actions. But oftentimes those belief systems need to shift in order for you to take those actions,
Yeah.
right? And in order for you to say, oh my God, I'm in a relationship that is exactly like you said. Like I had a lot of girlfriends, just like my mother too, attacking me, stabbing me in the back,
Yes.
all that kind of stuff. So it's taken me quite a while to clear out and then start to invite in the new. And the same with partners. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, wow, like, oops, I did it again, you know? Like, wow, it's not as bad. Like each one was an upgrade, but still
Yeah.
it was like, woo, still got a little piece to work on there. So yeah, it's not always pretty, it's not always fun,
Mm,
but to remember that, you know, we can, and we will shift this,
yeah.
right? That's really important. You're not stuck,
Hmm.
right? You're not stuck and it's not your fault.
Yeah. Healing is a full-time job, honestly. Like I I had moved from New York to San Diego like in the midst of like the start of my healing journey. I'm from New York City originally, and obviously a very traumatic place to grow up in. And so, when I got here and I just was, healing myself really full time, it was just around the clock work. And people in New York, with my friends, are like, "What are you doing over there? What are you doing in San Diego? Like, what's going on?" And I'm like, "I'm healing myself. Like, you have no idea how much energy this takes."
It is a full-time job. I think that's why a lot of people end up getting an illness
Yeah.
because it's a wake-up call, and we won't typically give ourselves permission to slow down
Hmm.
and to actually take the time necessary to heal a lot of times unless we're really sick, right? Like the MS really, I mean, for me, I had to get really, really sick to stop my what I call my superwoman, right?
Oh,
Like she just would not get off the hamster wheel. She wouldn't stop unless the body was like, you're done,
yeah.
right? So like I was given like bad symptoms. Like I could barely walk. I could barely even go to the bathroom some days. It was like a stroke on the right side of my body. And it's looking back, it was like, okay, my body really had to shut me down
Hmm.
so that I would take the time to heal.
Yeah.
So I don't wish that for anybody listening to this. And if you're already there, I'm sorry for that.
Yeah.
But, really giving yourself permission to take that time to heal now
Mhm.
versus waiting for a chronic illness to come knocking at your door.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, like you said, this pandemic is bringing up a lot of trauma for people, and if that's not a physical manifestation, we've now manifested the pain of the world in this like worldwide thing that's happening to all of us collectively, right? And like you said, bringing up a lot of different traumas and fears and anxieties about not being safe and not having certainty and, and security in our lives. And, what is something that you can offer our audience today if they're going through something like that, if they've lost their job, if they don't know what's next for them, if they don't, they're having anxiety and depression as their home, not knowing what to take their next step and what to do? What is something that, you can offer as some sort of just relief in this moment?
Yeah, I'll share what my practice is.
Yeah, yeah.
Before I do that, I just want to say I see like two groups of people in the world right now. The two big traumas that are being triggered. One is the I'm stuck. So a lot of people with the shutdown, the shelter at home, a lot of people are feeling that trapped or stuck feeling that they used to feel as a child.
Wow, yeah.
So that's a big indicator if you're feeling that is the part of you that is calling to be healed. And
Mm,
then the other group I see are those of us, and I fall into this group because I live alone right now, is where I'm isolated and alone.
mm,
Because I felt both growing up,
mm,
right? But right now the pandemic for me is stirring up that I'm alone. And because I'm alone, I'm not lovable, and I'm not going to survive, right? Because as a child, if you're alone, you feel like you're not going to survive.
yeah.
So just wanted to put that out there that it feels like there's those are the two big traumas that are being triggered right now that I see on the planet with the pandemic. As far as my daily practice, um, and this is something I've had even before the pandemic, but I am more quote unquote religious about it now, probably.
Mm,
Like I need to put even more tools in. So when I wake up in the morning, I actually take probably about 20 minutes and I do journaling. Like I take time to, how am I feeling, right? What emotions am I feeling? What am I feeling in my body? What thoughts, like when I said yesterday I woke up in depression, it was like, what thought is causing the depression?
mm,
And it was the I'm alone, right? I'm alone and I'm unlovable type of thing. So, taking that time in the morning to journal on what's coming up for you. And then again, always ending with soothing whatever that part of you is, whatever that limiting belief, and we all have them, that's coming up for you. The I'm not safe, etc. So it's soothing, it's talking to that part of you and telling it you are safe, you are lovable. So writing it and saying it, I think first thing in the morning is really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
I also make sure, and I do this in the morning too, but you guys might do it some other time during the day. I find getting outside and connecting with nature is super important, especially right now.
Yeah.
Nature's always been part of my anxiety and depression medicine. There's something that happens if I can just get outside and get out the door and be in the trees, or just being outside, I think is really important, and making sure, at least 20 minutes a day, that you're getting outside and you're connected with nature, because nature, you can actually feel the love and you can see the perfection.
Yes.
Right. And the beauty in everything, even though sometimes it looks not so beautiful. But I also, in the middle of the day, I always do a guided therapeutic meditation practice, which you guys are going to get a practice for me to do. But I find that it helps me release those fears and those limiting beliefs that are coming up. And it really soothes my nervous system. So it's really relaxing. It's really gentle. I usually lie down and do it. Sometimes I fall asleep. Sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
But it, because I'm sensitive, as you are, as most of you listening, empathic, sensitive, whatever you want to call it, I'll pick up stuff. Everyone, this is so interesting, right? Because you have your own anxiety and depression and things like that, and fears, but you're also picking up on the collective.
Absolutely.
So I make sure when I do my guided therapeutic meditation practice that I'm consciously setting an intention. Okay, I'm clearing out anything, not just mine, but that I've taken on from other people.
Yeah.
Whether it's your family, whether it's your partner, whether it's a friend, whether it's in the grocery store, you pick up on other people's, I remember in the beginning of the pandemic, I'd go to the grocery store and I'd get home and I would be having a panic attack.
Right. The fear and anxiety was palpable in the grocery store.
Yeah. I was like, I'm like, this is not mine. So clearing it, right? So you can do that if you don't have time to do the guided meditation practice, just closing your eyes and consciously clearing it with just your breath, right? So breathing in you and breathing out everybody else's stuff is a really simple but powerful practice. And if you do find it's your stuff, you can also just breathe in. So if you want to breathe in calmness or peace or safety, whatever word resonates with you.
Yeah.
Right? Hand on your heart, eyes closed, preferably, and then breathing out and releasing, whether it's overwhelm, fear, anxiety, sadness, whatever it is. And that can be done anytime, anywhere. Right? So I think that's a powerful thing that I do throughout the day whenever I become aware of, a shift in my emotion, let's just say, or my energy, if I'm starting to feel fatigued. Let's see, another practice I do is at the end of the day, I make sure that I get outside again for a little bit, just because I usually go in the morning. And I also make sure I connect with somebody. So this is really important if you live alone, right? That, whether it's me calling a friend, whether it's doing a Zoom thing, whether it's, I've got a few people around here that I just moved to my location as well in April. So I'm kind of like you in that it's kind of new. So I don't know a ton of people here, but I make sure that I connect on a personal level, because my clients are great, but that's not personal connection.
Right.
Right. So I have to make sure I connect personally with somebody and have that like give and receive support.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's super important. And I make sure that I do something that is joyful as well. Right. That makes me laugh, or because even though when we're in the middle of our pain and our healing in this pandemic, we can still be doing that, but we also need to feel that joy and that happiness and that gratitude for the good things that are happening. And yeah, regardless of what you're going through, there's still, find something joyful, right? Find something that brings you joy, whatever it might be. So yeah, and then I use a guided meditation practice again when I fall asleep at night, because I know, like maybe some of you, when the anxiety is high
Mm-hmm.
for myself or the planet, it will affect my sleep.
Yeah.
And we know that when our sleep gets affected, that impacts our ability to handle stress
Mm.
and our ability to heal. So the guided practice helps me to sleep more deeply and peacefully as well, at night. So
Yeah.
that's a snapshot of my daily practice.
I love all of that. I love all of that. And I could definitely see how like I need to incorporate more of that. I think I've been in like a little bit of a work mode thing, and I kind of feel imbalance a little bit within myself, and I'm like, just you going through all of those aspects, I'm like, okay, I'm missing this, I'm missing that. I need to get myself back into alignment, because I can't help myself or others if I'm not in a place of grounded, just like emotion, energetically, spiritually, mentally, right? I love the aspect of meaningful connection, right? Like having someone hold space for you, because as I'm a coach, and I'm sure you're a coach too, that you're holding space for all these people, and you're doing so much, and then you're like, wait, what about me, right? Like, who's holding space for me? Like, who can support me? And like, sometimes I can notice that in myself, where I'm like, I'm just giving, 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 and I'm not allowing myself to receive. And so
Absolutely. You've got to carve out that time. I mean, some people might say, oh my God, you do all that in a day? How do you find time? I have learned I have to make the time, because I don't want to end up with MS again.
yeah.
Right? I don't want to go back there, and I don't want to experience the horrible anxiety and depression. There were times in my life like I wanted to kill myself, and I don't want to go down that path again. So it's saying, you know what, I'm worth the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm worth the time that it takes. And the other piece I think too that is so important is, don't try to do it alone. Right? Like healing, I have always had people in my life, even though I help others to do it, I need support.
Yes.
Right? Like I think that's one of those big false, you know, well, I'm a coach or I'm a healer, whatever, so I don't need support.
No, we
Oh,
need
yeah,
the most support.
and even if you're not a coach, healer, or health professional, you still, yeah, it's not weak. It's actually strong
Yes.
to ask for support, and it's safe to ask for support. So finding that person that you really resonate with. And I usually meet with my coach, mentor, spiritual mentor, like once a month. I've been meeting almost every week, like
Yeah.
the last 3 months, because of all the intensity and all of my shit that's coming up
Mm-hmm.
on
Mm-hmm.
a deeper level. So yeah, stop trying to be brave and do it alone.
Yeah.
That's a superwoman, superman trait. I say superhuman. So it's like, we've got to let that one go.
Yeah.
Right? We've
And
got
I
to.
think also being brave enough to face it too, because I think what I see a lot of people are trying to do is numb out right now and avoid, and, just be either on the TV, on the phone, like just trying to not, deal with what's coming up because it's uncomfortable. And I think, in the uncomfortability is where you grow. And I think, when you have somebody that is able to hold that space for you and be accountable for your journey, whether it's, I have a therapist and I have a coach, like, because I am, like, again, the work is never done. And if I'm ever for me, I don't really trust a coach. Without a coach, you always got to be doing that inner work. It's so important. It's never ending.
Yeah. When you're looking for somebody, make sure that like when you interview the person you might want to work with, you ask them, what are you doing for, like
Yes.
what are you continuing to do to work on your stuff? Because so many, I just see it. So many people don't.
Right.
Right. And I think you can't powerfully and as effectively help others if you're not constantly,
Mm,
doing your own stuff too. So,
absolutely.
so yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Tanya. I am like, so I feel just like the purity of your heart and your work and your message is so clear. It's so just moving, and I see so many similarities in our journey too. So I'm just super grateful to connect with you, and thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your heart with us, and bringing so much value to our audience so that they can find their way out of this situation, I guess, in a better place, because I mean, and I know this, like there is no trauma without transformation, right? Like you can't go through things and come out unchanged. And that's kind of why I started this, because like for me, it's like if you're going through trauma, there is a reason for it, and when we can find that deeper lesson in it and surrender to whatever the universe is trying to teach us to help us to transform, to grow, to peel back, to release, like finding that surrender and being like, okay, like I'm here, I'm ready to do this work, whatever it is. And
Absolutely. And one other piece, what you're just talking right now, is like, oh yeah, I want to remember to say this too. One of the other things I have found helpful is to ask and write, what I call write and reflect, is what gift or what gifts has this trauma brought me?
yeah.
And I know that when you're in like the middle of it, it's really hard.
Yeah.
But just keep asking that question, right? Like what gifts? And it's not that we're not going to, again, it's not like we're not going to help the wounded part of you to heal. But this is more of the spiritual part that I talked about in the beginning again, is like, what gift or gifts is this bringing me, right? Like most people would say, well, what gift could there possibly be in your father sexually abusing you? And, one of the gifts is that I understand. And because of me healing mine, I'm able, a lot of my clients I work with have been sexually abused.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't be able to fully help them if I didn't understand and haven't gone through it myself.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, so that's just an important piece I wanted to tie in there. And then, do you want me to talk about my gift?
Yes, please, please.
Okay. So my gift is kind of a little bundle. The first part of it's called the Vibrant Body and Abundant Life Starter Kit. And it's the 10 keys blueprint guide. So the 10 keys that I had to move through in order to heal the trauma and the chronic illness ultimately. So there's a blueprint guide, there's an audio lesson that goes with it, and then there's one of those guided therapeutic meditation practices that I talked about throughout. And the second piece of the bundle is I recently did a class called Healing Trauma. And so you're going to get the replay of that class, plus one of my new, I kind of came up with a new process. It's not so new anymore, about 1 to 2 years ago, called the self-healing wound process. So you're also going to get a sample practice of that process to use as well, which helps you talk about and talk to and soothe that inner child that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So it's going to really help you to work on a deeper level with that part of you. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's what I've got for you guys. And I think you'll find it very beneficial.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. It sounds like such like a lot. So I'm hoping that people are really going to benefit and find a start, if anything, to their healing journey through that amazing free gift that you're going to be giving us. The link to Tanya's free gift is underneath this video, as well as the email that you received this interview in. Tanya, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you and all the work that you're doing in the world. And thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Transforming Trauma to Triumph. I'm your host, Diana Min, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.